Well, the thing that amazes me, and I'm still amazed about it, because I came to New York on a Friday night. I had come up from Washington, D.C., and I was staying with my uncle in Harlem, and I had lied and told him, said, I've got to meet some people down in Harlem, near 116th Street. So, I'll be back a little later than you expect me, but I have to go meet these people, because I wanted to go to Minton's. I didn't tell him where I was going or what I was doing, but I wanted to go there and sit in, and because I had talked to guys in Washington D.C. and they said, yeah, look, everybody will let you sit in if you're a nice enough guy, and so I'm gonna be really nice, so I'll sit in. So I got there about 9 o'clock and sat around all night, and the piano player didn't know whether I could play or not, and guys were coming in that he knew, and he knew they could play, so they got to play and everything. Finally, about 3 o'clock in the morning, this got one more hour to play, and so he said, "Come on, and let me play." Well, by this time, all night long, you've had maybe 4 or 5 guys playing. But everybody's off from work now. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Guys coming in from the club, so then we got 10 guys, and getting more as the time goes on. Everybody wants to sit in. Well, I look up, and one of my idols is standing in the doorway. Not in the doorway, but as I coming up the steps where I could see him. It was Joe. It was the wonderful tenor player that I had always tried to imitate. From listening to Duke Ellington.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, well, Ben Webster that's the way I'd like to play. I never did. Thank goodness. I finally. I went to high school with Frank West, and he sounded more like Ben Webster than I ever could hope to when he was 16. so that got me off that hook. But I'm looking up, and here's Ben Webster, the guy that if he had 4 bars on a record, I bought it. I mean, because I really liked his playing that much. He sang on and so anyway, I got a chance to. He came, stood right behind the piano, and I'm playing, and everybody else is playing, and so he's. I don't get too many chances to play solo because there's so many guys on the bandstand. So, no, but he said, look, I like what you're doing. I didn't know that Ben was when he was younger was a piano player. But when he looked over my shoulder, he knew exactly what I was doing, and so he had. But anyway, he make a long story short. He said, "Come on down. I'd like for you to come down to the Three Deuces where I'm working. It's Friday night, so come down on Sunday because Saturday's too. I can't listen to you, but come down, and I'd like to hear you play more. So I like what I heard." And so I went down and made an audition and got a gig. The third night I was in New York. I was working with Ben Webster on 52nd Street, and it was really I couldn't have dreamed anything like that before.
I've got a Ben Webster story, and that's something he told me that's lasted the rest of my life. He had left at Duke Ellington. He was playing around the country. But many of the club owners couldn't pay for his regular rhythm section, so he was in Boston, and he tried to make them move the way he moved. It wasn't working. So between sets, I'm sitting next to him at the bar, and he looked at me and he said, kid, I was about 19 or 20, kid, when the rhythm section ain't making it, go for yourself. And I keep telling editors that when they mess with my copy.
The thing about Hank's book, which is really what we're here to talk about, is that it catches a flavor when you read these interviews with the musicians. They talk about the life in Harlem, and one of the things about the life in Harlem for the musicians were the after-hour spots. There were lots of after-hour clubs up there, and they really went till 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not talking about rent parties. I never was at a real rent party. You probably were at it, but they must have been very exciting. But I did go one of the great nights of my life. We went up at 145th Street, I think, the Log Cabin. I don't remember, and I was with Art Tatum and another piano player, Sammy Benskin, and we went to this little club, and they had an upright piano there. But it was a nice little piano. It was okay. And Tatum wanted to play. But what they had there were ladies. I mean, not so young ladies. They were all singing. They all wanted to sing. And I don't know who was playing for them. It wasn't Sammy, or it wasn't they had another piano player. And they would sing songs. And Tatum would give them tips to get them to stop singing because he wanted to play the piano. And finally, there were about 3 or 4 of these ladies, and they weren't great singers. They loved to sing. And this now was getting 5 o'clock in the morning, and Tatum wanted to play the piano. So what happened was Sammy got up to play a little bit to break it up, and then I got up to play for about 5 minutes and then Tatum sat down. And Art was smoking a cigarette between his 4th and 5th finger on his left hand. And I sat there, we just sat there right next to him, not in the other, right like I'm sitting next to you. And he played for about an hour, and once in a while he'd puff on that cigarette. He'd just let it with his left hand, doing things that nobody could do with their right hand or both hands. And that was Harlem to me. I always remembered that because you catch a little bit of that spirit in this book.
Yeah.
And that is the important thing about this book, to catch the spirit of what Harlem was, and maybe it still is to that degree. I don't think so, because the music's not the same. There's other life in Harlem that doesn't relate to that great swing era, that great era where all these guys came from. But that's what Hank's book is all about.
Well, the nice thing, George, is that one thing that when I finished up the French edition, I had talked to a lot of people, and to a person, one of the questions that I asked was, do you think it'll ever come back? And every single person said no, it'll never come back. Well, every single one of them was wrong, because there is it's a different music scene now,
yeah.
But there is a scene. I mean, there are places, the Lenox Lounge is open every night, and they're doing things at Minton's, and Apollo has, things going on. So it's getting considerably better. And all those guys who, were doomsday kind of folks, and I could understand why, because, you would talk to someone like Cy Oliver, and they would say, I drove across 125th Street, and I'm never going to do it again in my life. Or Benny Waters would talk about the day he came back from France, and he got out of the subway stop at 125th Street, and he said he sat down on the curb and cried, and that kind of thing. So none of them were very positive. But I think that one of the best things is that there's music in the air uptown, and people should take more advantage of it.